Good morning, everyone. Okay, when we left off yesterday, we'd met Arturo Zamora and some of his family and friends. They were gathered for their Sunday meal at his abuela's restaurant, talking about expanding the restaurant with the possible help of an old family friend who has a daughter that Arturo is interested in. So we'll start on page 10. On page 10, about 2/3 down the way, where it says, my mom needed help. Okay, so get to 10, and then it says, my mom needed help. All right, here we go. My mom needed help bringing out the food, so she asked me to go to the patio to call Mari, Yolanda, and Aunt Tuti. I caught them complaining about the humidity outside and in the same breath whining that the air conditioning was too cold inside. I really didn't understand the woman in my family. As I turned to walk back into the restaurant, I nearly crashed into Carmen, who had appeared out of nowhere. Geez, I said, holding my chest, you scared me. Sorry, she said, smiling. So the proposal is to expand the restaurant over there? Carmen pointed beyond our small patio. The lot was visible from where we stood, with only 5 small tables and a green awning in our way. Huh? Oh, yeah. That whole area, I said, gesturing. Carmen walked over to the edge of the patio and looked out. I followed her and took in the mostly dark lot that was illuminated by one street lamp on the far corner. Hey, Carmen said, interrupting the silence. Do you remember when you all came to visit us in Marbella that one summer? Yeah, I said. What were we, like 8? Yeah, I remember you threw sand at me and then tried to run away, but I chased you down the beach. And you caught up to me, pinned me to the ground, and dripped wet sand on my back that slithered down my butt when I got up. Oh, God, why did I say that? Carmen laughed. You looked so funny trying to wash your butt in the water. That water was freezing. Oh, come on, she said. It wasn't that cold. Seawater in southern Spain is way colder than the ocean in Miami. Carmen laughed again. You never caught me, she said. That's because you were like a mutant half cheetah. I stopped talking when I noticed a figure crossing the street. I don't think Carmen saw it because she was pointing to the other small building lining the neighborhood. It's so nice how the buildings are all the same size, she said. Yeah, I said, still looking at the figure standing in the shadows. Hey, do you see that over there? I asked. Carmen followed my gaze. Yeah, she said. It looks like that person is taking something out of a bag. What is it? I don't know. A couple of quick flashes popped from the mysterious figure. They're taking photographs. Hey, you, Carmen blurted out. The person looked up from the camera and stared at us. I couldn't see his or her face because it was covered by a large hat. The person put the camera away, walked across the street, and disappeared into the darkness. That was weird, Carmen said. Yeah, I replied, wondering who would want to take pictures this late at night. But then my mom called us in to eat and we went back inside the restaurant. Everyone raced to find a seat like they were playing musical chairs or something. They pushed and shoved and complained that they didn't have enough room. But we all settled down once Abuela stood next to her cushioned chair at the head of the table. I arrived at her side because that was always my place. I'm not sure if abuelas are allowed to have favorite grandkids, but I can tell you this. My abuela always wanted me to sit next to her. She mentioned for everyone to quiet down. We all joined hands, and when Abuela bowed her head, everyone followed. As she prayed quietly, we were silent. I admit, I peeked to my left to see what Carmen was doing. I had a clear shot of her because Vanessa's head was down. Carmen was deep in prayer, mumbling softly to herself. When Abuela lifted her head to indicate she was finished praying, she caught me looking over at Carmen. Her face lit up when she saw Carmen had just opened her eyes and was looking back at me. My gaze shifted from Abuela to Carmen, and suddenly my cheeks burned. I had trouble breathing. Thankfully, people started to lift their heads, waiting for further instruction from Abuela. She smiled and made the sign of the cross. Everyone did the same, even Mop, and he's Jewish. With the praying portion of the evening over, nobody waited to be served. Elbows flew as everyone scooped the mushy rice and black beans, topped with avocado, picked from the tree in our courtyard. They loaded fricasse de pollo from chafing dishes and platters like it was their last meal on earth. My mom brought Abuela her soup with all the chunks pureed out of it. Le ayudo, mami? Abuela declined my mom's help and motioned for her to leave the bowl. I noticed Mop trying to get a spoonful of congris, but he couldn't get to the ladle in time. People kept taking it. Mop's name was actually Benjamin, but we nicknamed him Mop because he was skinny and he had really shaggy hair. One time we'd be seeing who could stand on their heads the longest, and when it had been Mop's turn, Bran had said he looked like a mop cleaning the floor. We'd all laughed, and Mop had decided that he would henceforth be known as Mop, because I shall clean the earth of all its iniquities. Mop always talked like that. He is definitely my smartest friend. When dinner ended, we cleaned up and prepared the restaurant for the next day. No one complained as Abuela watched. My family argued a lot, but Abuela always found a way to get everyone on the same page. Mop's and Bran's parents picked them up, and the rest of my family left at different times. I stayed behind with my mom, my dad, Uncle Frank, and Carmen to lock up. The walk from the restaurant to our apartment complex was about 10 minutes. Carmen trailed behind with me as my parents and Uncle Frank walked ahead. It must be cool to live in the same building as your whole family, Carmen said. You always have someone to talk to. Not only did my entire family work together at La Cocina, but we also lived in the same apartment complex. There was a Zamora in every unit, and this summer, Carmen and Uncle Frank were going to live there too. Yeah, I guess so, I said. I like that Abuela is just downstairs, but I'm not sure I like Martin and Brian invading my space all the time. I feel kind of lonely back home. That's why I loved when your family came to visit, Carmen said. Do you remember when we tried to be an 8-foot giant and we put on my mom's winter coat and you sat on my shoulders while we tried to walk around? Carmen spoke like the words were at the tip of her tongue at all times. I'm pretty sure you got on my shoulders, I said, remembering her parents' house in Madrid that same summer we'd gone to the beach. You couldn't carry me, remember? We kept falling down. Oh, yeah, I said. How embarrassing. And then you got on my shoulders, but you didn't notice the door, and you banged your head, and we both crashed to the floor, Carmen laughed. That's right, I said, wishing she didn't have such a good memory. We had knocked down a vase of flowers. I remembered how Carmen's mom had come into the room and laughed, watching us in a tangled peacoat covered in fresh floribundas and water. Then my mom walked in, an angry look on her face, but Carmen's mom just put her arm around my mom's shoulders and smiled. That was a fun trip, I said. So you're just staying in Miami for the summer? Yes, Madrina said. It would be good to be with family. Yeah, sorry about, your mom. Un día a la vez, she said, and offered a small smile. That's what Abuela says. Every time I get frustrated or impatient about something, Abuela reminds me to take it one day at a time. It was nice to see you again, Arturo, Carmen said. She turned to follow Uncle Frank into their unit. You too, I said. As I walked into my room, I tried to make sense of what had happened tonight. Carmen equals mom's goddaughter niece was not computing with Arturo plus Carmen equals sudden frying of intestines when I talked to her. All right, 2, death by soap monsters. I woke up the next morning to the sound of my Hulk alarm blasting, Hulk smash, in my ear. My first thought right after, this thing is way too loud, was about dinner last night. Why had I acted so weird around Carmen? It was probably nothing. I was just excited to see an old friend or something. Anyway, I was pumped about starting work at the restaurant. The money I made over the summer was always enough for plenty of movies on the weekends. A new basketball, at least one new pair of kicks, and a whole school year's worth of weekend ice cream trips to 2 Scoops, conveniently located around the corner from La Cocina de la Isla. My mom and dad had already left to buy the morning vegetables for the day's menu. They saved me some tortilla española in a pie pan on the counter. Tortilla española is a great breakfast meal. It's perfect at any temperature, and the egg, onion, and potato fill you up after one slice. I shoveled a whole piece into my mouth, grabbed my keys, and started walking to the restaurant. I had proven myself last summer when I was the second assistant junior lunch reservations phone operator. That job was cool because I was on the phone all day and got to sit in a really comfortable office chair. More than once I was told I had a really nice speaking voice. I turned the corner from our apartment complex and walked a few blocks to the main strip, where all the restaurants and shops in Canal Grove were located. And there it was, our colorful sign. The O in cocina was bright orange, while the rest of the letters were outlined in green and black, and behind the letters was a faint shape of an island. Two multicolored giraffes greeted customers at the entrance of the restaurant, making an arch as you walked through the French double doors. Giraffes were Abuela's favorite animal. I liked them because they were tall and lanky and had big eyes that always looked happy, like Abuela. Yolanda was already inside unfolding chairs, while Mari rolled up forks, knives, and spoons inside napkins. Color defined la cocina de la isla. Every bright hue imaginable covered every inch of the interior. Green, orange, yellow, teal. La cocina was cheerful. It had been like that since Abuela had first opened it 19 years ago. My dad had had the walls repainted recently, and even though the paint had already faded a little, it still looked vibrant and fresh. Out back, there was a little courtyard with stone columns and an ancient-looking coral stage that was part of the building structure. In that courtyard, we hosted countless weddings, birthdays, engagements, anniversaries, and every other kind of party you could imagine. The hallways leading to the kitchen were covered in picture frames. There was a young abuela sitting in one of the tables with a U.S. senator and his wife. And another picture was she was sitting with the famous musician Celia Cruz. One where she was being hugged by Gloria and Emilio Estefan. She had taken dozens of photos with telenovela actors, local newscasters, and writers who passed through town. One of my favorite photos was of my mom and Abuela smiling as Abuela symbolically handed my mom a ladle when she took over as head chef. Another picture showed my mom accepting her first major cooking award, the Newbie Chef Challenge competition on the Food is Life network. Next to that, a picture of my first basketball team, the Islanders. Abuela bought jerseys for all the players on the team. She'd done that for every one of my sports teams since I was 5. There was a picture of Vanessa accepting the Outstanding Community Citizen Award, the youngest person to ever win it. Mari and Yolanda dressed in their prom outfits after they decided they would be each other's dates. A large wedding photo of my parents. There was one of Aunt Tuti, my mom, and Uncle Carlos as kids with Abuela and Abuelo at the beach. Compare that to one of me and all my cousins huddled around Abuela when we were really small. Vanessa and I were cuddled in Abuela's arms. Everything about La Cocina came back to family. I think that's why so many customers loved it. When they came here, they felt like family too. That was how Abuela wanted it. I approached the office and waited for my mom to finish her phone call so she could tell me what job I would have. When she hung up, she reached over to a rack and pulled a white chef coat off a hanger. "What's my job, Mom?" I asked, suddenly excited that she wanted me to be a line cook or something. "You're going to be the junior lunchtime dishwasher." The air escaped my lungs. "Huh?" is all I could muster. "Didn't you say that you wanted to work in the kitchen this year?" she asked. "Well, yes, but I was thinking something else, like a prep cook or something." "Dishwasher is probably the most important job in the kitchen, Arturo. If dishes aren't clean, you can't serve our customers." Junior lunchtime dishwasher? It was the worst job ever. I wasn't happy, but I didn't show it. My mother was a no-nonsense chef and boss. Her cooks were respectfully terrified of her. As a dishwasher, I was at the very bottom of the kitchen hierarchy, so I needed to follow the rules and not mess up. Besides, I just had to work 3 dishwashing shifts a week. What was the worst that could happen?